Do you believe in UFOs?
No, I don't think they exist. I wish they did. I believe in life on other worlds. That's something else again, but there is no proof that any UFOs have ever visited our Earth. There hasn't been any proof.
Well, you believe there's life on other planets, but they can't get to us?
No, I'm not saying that, but you asked me about UFOs. Mm-hmm. That's something entirely different. It's the imaginings of people here on Earth who dearly wish that they would encounter these life forms in the spaceship. And I wish for it too. I think it'd be wonderful, probably scare the hell out of me. But no, we have no proof.
How is it that a young boy from Waukegan, Illinois, son of a line electrician, grows up to become one of America's premier science fiction writers?
I remember being born and almost everything since, and I was able to check this out with my mother and remembering things, camera locations in the house, that couldn't be taught to you because you wouldn't have been told. How I lay in my crib.
Do you remember being circumcised?
Yeah, when I was about 3-4 days old. I remember lying on the table and the doctor bending over me with a scalpel, and the pain. So you can't get that in no one can put that in your head, you see. You can't have that sort of memory. I think I was born with a lot of loves, genetic loves in many directions. I feel very fortunate that all of my life, as soon as one madness passes, I seize on another. Like with dinosaurs when I was a kid, all of the films with Lon Chaney, Buck Rogers, the science fiction magazines, World's Fairs, carnivals, poetry, painting, Egyptology.
You wrote your first story at age 12, but published when you were age 20.
I wrote a series of humorous stories and essays and poems for Rob Wagner's Script, which was a magazine, something like the New Yorker in Beverly Hills in 1940-41. William Saroyan started there before me, 5 or 6 years before, and they didn't pay you. They gave you a subscription to the magazine for a lifetime. Well, you couldn't eat that, could you? I was 22 before I wrote a short story I really liked. 10 years of work, millions of words. And when I finished my first really good short story, when I was 22, The Lake, I wept, and I sat at my typewriter and I wept, and I thought, yeah, I've turned the corner at last, Turned the corner at last, and all the deep stuff is coming out.
When did you start writing science fiction?
I wrote science fiction and fantasy and horror stories all through high school and into my late teens and early 20s. I began to send short stories out to Esquire magazine.
That's very ambitious.
Yeah, when I was 16, 15, and I've got the rejection slips around here somewhere still.
Where did the idea for Fahrenheit 451 come from?
Hanging around the fire station when I was a kid with my dad in my hometown, and then later when I heard about Hitler burning the books, or saw him burn the books in the newsreels in the middle 30s, and then the history of Russia and all the books they burned while I was growing up, and the history of China doing the same regardless of who's in power, and the history of Alexandria and the libraries there 2,000 years ago, and the thousands of really precious books burned. And that always bothered me because I've been a library person since I was 8, and since I never went to college, the library is my university. So I grew up with an ardent feeling for libraries.
You in fact typed this novel in 3 weeks in the basement on rented typewriters of the UCLA library.
I discovered they had a typing room there, and for 10 cents a half hour, I could join a lot of students in there, and 12, 14 typewriters, and I spent roughly $9.80 in dimes writing Fahrenheit 451, and in between sessions at the typewriter, running upstairs and touching the books and opening the books and smelling the books and reading the books. The most important event in my literary life is getting the job of writing Moby Dick for the screen from John Huston, because that changed my life totally.
How did that come about?
Well, I admired his films for years and always wanted to work for him. And then when I'd published 3 books, Martian Chronicles, Illustrated Man, and Dark Carnival, When I was 31, I asked Ray Stark, who was an agent at that time, my agent, to arrange a dinner with John Huston at Mike Romanoff's restaurant. And it was St. Valentine's Night, 1951, a great night to start a love affair, huh? And I put all my books on the table, and I said to Huston, if you like my books as much as I love your films, I hope you'll call me someday. And when he came back to L.A. in August of 1953, he called me and gave me the job of writing Moby Dick, because he'd read my story about a dinosaur in love with a lighthouse, huh? And that was the story that convinced him I was Herman Melville's bastard son.
What was the experience like working with Huston?
Very strange, because we didn't know what the heck we were doing for a long time. He didn't understand Melville any more than I did.
Were you pleased with the way the film came out?
Yes, I'm very proud of it. I think Greg Peck was adequate during part of the film, and at certain moments, very fine indeed. I wouldn't have cast him.
Who would you have cast?
Laurence Olivier, I would like to have had, or even Burt Lancaster to go in another direction. See, because Burt, there's a mad streak to him. He's really mad. When he's on screen and decides to be crazy, he's insane, and you believe it. You know, that's what Ahab is. And you don't really believe Gregory Peck could be insane ever in his life. He's a nice man. I love him. He's a terrific guy. So there's that difference. Olivier could be mad. And when you look at Wuthering Heights, that wonderful performance there of a man that's on the edge of madness in a way because of love. And but nevertheless, with all its flaws, it's going to be around forever.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a good thing to know. And for me to start my career as a screenwriter with that.
Is it true that you write from between 1,000 and 2,000 words a day?
Sure, well, that's nothing. That's only 4 to 8 pages. And you can do that in half an hour.
You might be able to. I don't know many people that can.
Well, they haven't tried. If it's work, don't bother. And do something else. Except,
but work to you is play?
Well, it's got to be play or it doesn't work.
Is it true you've never had writer's block?
That's right. By always staying in love, you never have writer's block if you're doing what you should do. Writer's block comes from doing things that you should be opposed to. If you're writing a screenplay, you shouldn't be writing. For money, you're not going to do good work. And eventually, your psyche will shut down on you and say, hey, I don't like you anymore. You're doing cheap work.
What about running out of ideas?
You never do, not if you're curious. Yeah. And if you're a maniac like me, so I have a complete history of, art history in me. I have a history of poetry, essays, novels, short stories, music, architecture, city planning, rapid transit. So you can't run out of ideas. Space travel.
How do you research these areas?
You must never research. It should be your life,
Of course, you like to work quickly.
Quickness is the essence of creativity. If you slow down, you'll do something self-conscious. You'll do something to please your intellectual friends, which is a mistake. You mustn't try to please anyone except yourself. Or you'll do something commercial. You turn into Judith Krantz, and then you'll want to kill yourself at sunset. And she's a nice lady.
You've met her?
Yeah, she's a sweetheart, and I love her. But I just don't much appreciate that kind of writing, that's all. The night after I saw Close Encounters of a Third Kind, I was so impressed with the film that I wrote a review of it, called the LA Times, and they said, we already have a review. I said, you don't understand. If you don't publish mine too, I'm coming down and tear the joint apart. They said, oh, well, in that case, and they published my review. Then I called Spielberg, whom I didn't know, and I said, you got 5 minutes? He said, why? I said, I want to come over to the studio and give you a big hug and tell you what a genius you are. He said, well, heck, come ahead. So I went over and gave him the review. And then he said, how do you like your film? And I said, what? He said, yes, this is your film. And if I hadn't seen It Came from Outer Space, your film, when I was 10 or 12, whatever it was, I would never have made Close Encounters. Very generous, very nice thing to say. And I gather it's true, or he wouldn't have said it. So we're friendly acquaintances. He calls me Papa. Okay, every once in a while in a letter he'll put at the bottom, are you still my Papa? Every time I'm in Paris, I look to see what's at the opera. And if it's Tosca, I'm over there so fast that I knock people down. And when the curtain goes up, within 2 seconds, I'm crying. Huh? I always wanted to have my own series, but I was afraid of the network people because they interfere. I mean, they really interfere and are non-creative, and most of them are lunatic and dumb.
And that still holds true today, you feel?
Yeah, I've had meetings a couple of years ago with NBC and CBS, and the advice I got, I couldn't believe. Just incredibly dumb. People were far more terrified in that time than they should have been, because I came right out and called McCarthy a son of a bitch, and all the people around him. Searches for legitimate criminals is one thing. Ruining careers and lives of people who really hadn't done anything, except join the Communist Party, which was a popular thing to do at that time. It was dumb. I mean, it was stupid, if you really look at the history of communism. But nevertheless, they weren't stealing secrets or bombing people, that sort of thing. There's no censorship. Everyone gets to do what they want in our society. You want to paint a picture, you paint a picture. No one's stopping you. No, but if you want to sell it to a national gallery or have it displayed, that's something else again. But if they don't want it, if they have certain rules about profanity or nudity or whatever, or crucifixes and urine, fine, that's swell. Go form your own gallery. I've known many artists years ago, 8 or 9 artists, rent a space and hang their pictures. You mustn't expect your society to support you. Why should it? A lot of madness goes on in every civilization, and ours is the cause. We don't have any statistics on how many marriages have been destroyed by the freeway, because people kid themselves they can live out in Thousand Oaks and commute. You can't. It takes 3 hours a day to do that. Okay, you get home at night, 7 or 8 o'clock, and you can't talk to your family, you miss dinner, your sex life goes to hell, and there goes the marriage. When the divorce comes up, the freeway is never mentioned, but that's what did it. 50% of the people on the freeway any 1 hour shouldn't be there. They're not out on business. They're out joyriding. On Sunday we said, well, let's go visit Aunt Mary. Well, where is she? Well, she's halfway down to San Diego. So half those people you see are going to visit someone who doesn't want them to come in the first place. I write all my plays free. I write all of my novels. No one pays me to write my novels or my short stories or my poetry. And when I finish them, I send them out.
But they pay you when they publish them.
If they get published, yeah. But a lot of them don't, you see.
What's the percentage? It's very small.
Well, nowadays, of course, it's high. But when I was in my 20s and 30s, my wife worked to support me, you see. So I was making $30 a week when I was lucky, when I was 29. See, you got to work free most of your life and do what you love. In theater, you never get anything. I've never made a penny, and I've put on 20 plays now. And every time I put one on, I lose everything, but I don't care. About once every 3 years, I say to my wife, is this the year we open the window and throw the money out? She says, you want to put on another play? And I say, yes. And she says, open the window.
Have you, in fact, had a bestseller?
Never have had. No, never in my life.
Why do you suppose?
I suppose I'm too special. Writing science fiction, fantasy, whatever I do. But you don't need many people to love you, do you? Only one, actually. And if you get a few more beyond that, that's swell. I went to groups around town and moved into Clifton's cafeteria when I was 17, my last year in high school, so that I could meet all these famous science fiction writers and dream their dream and make the future and finally sell something. And they sustained me. Knowing how to find teachers, and then gradually you find other teachers in other fields, directors, other writers, screenwriters.
People know how to find you.
Yeah, and I do the same for them. You've got to pass it on. You can't. You've got to give back to the world. Everything that you don't keep anything. You give it all back.
Do you, Ray Bradbury, have a fantasy wish?
If God gave me the chance to have another life, not start over, because I'm very happy with my life, but to have another one, then I'd be an architect. Maybe I'd be a full-time screenwriter because I love film. I would make a good priest or a minister or a rabbi or run for pope or whatever, because I'm curious about the universe and I want to interpret it intelligently And excitingly,
Now you've got this book, Zen in the Art of Writing.
all the creative arts, well, everything in life is the same. Playing a game of basketball, when it finally gets good, is Zen. In other words, you're trying to imitate the birds of the air, the animals of the field, the instinctive, intuitive creatures of the world, who many of them don't have to be taught, or taught very little, how to fly. So that's why I wrote the book, to teach people to trust their subconscious, their intuition, to go into the deep self, whatever that is, memories of childhood that you think are not there, but they are.
I think we're all capable of pulling up those
Sure,
memories?
because, but you just haven't done it, that's all. And so you haven't formed the habit. And if you make lists of nouns, and then write little paragraphs about the noun, and then your subconscious begins to come up and say, oh yes, I remember what summer night porches were like in 1927, what 4th of July was like in 1925. Seeing your first mountain, when I was 6, I went out to Roswell, New Mexico, and seeing El Capitan at a distance, all blue, blue mountain waiting on the horizon. God, what a thrill. First mountain in my life. So all those things, the carousel rides when I was a kid terrified me. My mother took me on a merry-go-round. I suppose I was 4 or 5. I wanted to get off, but it was too late. I couldn't. So I just screamed like hell. And that comes out in my short stories later. Something Wicked This Way Comes, my novels. So you go back for all those things.
Would you do us the honor of reading a poem?
I could try. Well, this is a good, nice, short one because it's called Doing is Being, really, which is what life is all about. Doing is being. To have done's not enough. To stuff yourself with doing, that's the game. To name yourself each hour by what's done. To tabulate your time at sunset's gun. And find yourself in acts you could not know before the facts you wooed from secret self, which much needs wooing. So doing brings it out, kills doubt by simply jumping, rushing, running, forced to be the now discovered me. To not do is to die, or lie about and lie about the things you just might do someday. Away with that. Tomorrow empty stays if no man plays it into being with his motioned way of seeing. Let your body lead your mind, blood the guide dog to the blind. So then practice and rehearse to find heart soul's universe, knowing that by moving, seeing proves for all time doing's being.
That's lovely.
Then all the stuff comes out. Keep moving.